بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Dear viewers, dear listeners, dear students, dear colleagues, I'm pleased to be here on this YouTube channel, which I'm going to talk about morphology. Of course, morphology is a course that I'm teaching at the Hashemite University in Jordan, and this class is for the undergraduate students. In this class, of course, I'm going to talk about the major morphology issues. Of course, it is not going to cover everything, but I'm going to do my best to get the students exposed to the major concepts of morphology. Before we get into the details of the course, I just want to talk about the course information. Here, as we see, morphology can be defined as a branch of linguistics that examines the shape and internal structure of words. So it focuses on the knowledge speakers need to understand and use words intuitively. So, since words and their subparts exist in the mental lexicon, morphology also explores how the lexicon is structured. So, in this course, actually, we are going to talk about how morphologists seek to determine what kinds of knowledge speakers of a language need to have in order to use words and have intuitions about them. Since words or their subparts, as I said, are stored in the speaker's mental lexicon, morphology is the also the study of the lexicon and how it is organized. Morphology can be characterized as the study of the morphemes, also as the morphemes here. Uh, okay. Uh, the morphemes, roots, as we see here, affixes, some circumfixes, infixes, and the rules of combining them into words, i.e., how these rules govern how these morphemes combine to form words. However, the concept of morpheme is problematic and is debatable, and some morphologists have proposed theories of word structure which dispense with morphemes altogether. Some of the major questions that we will be addressing in this course include the following: what is a word? Here, what is a word? Is a word a coherent notion? And if so, how can it be defined? What is the status of words within the speaker's mental grammar? Are morphemes, in terms of the morphemes, are morphemes best viewed as atoms, I mean basic building blocks of words, or as rules, functions, mapping one word stem to another, or as both neither? What does our theory of morphemes tell us about the structure of the lexicon? Where does here, if we look into this issue actually, where does the where does morphology fit into grammar? Actually, where does morphology live in grammar? Languages clearly have phonological principles, I mean rules governing the combining of structures into segments, segments into syllables, etc., as well as syntactic principles or rules, where we have rules governing the combining of words into larger structures. So, but here, as we see, are there any principles or independent principles of morphology, and hence, let's say, uh, a kind of separate morphology module in grammar? Is there any independent morphology, as I said, module, or do morphological patterns emerge from phonology here. That this is the main point that we are going to that we deal with. At morphology at the interface of form and meaning. Words exist in two domains actually. Here, when we talk about uh, the words, how they exist in two domains, the syntactic units and phonological units, of course. So they exist in grammar, both, as I said, syntactic units, which play a role in sentence structure, and phonological units, also, as I said here, within a hierarchy of prosodic domains. So here we will, of course, um, we will be interested in particularly how in how the study of word structure interfaces with the study of sound structure and the study of a sentence structure as we see here. Okay, so this is basically the main point that typically we are going to deal with when we talk about the this class. Okay. Maybe we are going to also talk about the morphology and its interactions. Morphology as the study of word structure. It interacts with syntax and phonology, as we say here, and here with phonology. With syntax, for example, can syntax be analyzed with, let's say, can syntax be analyzed with no access to the internal morphological structure to the word? Or better put, just what information regarding word structure is it optimal for syntax to have access to? At the level of, let's say, of phonology, to what extent, huh? To what extent are phonological alternations or generalizations influenced by morphological structure? Morphology here, if we move to morphology as word decomposition, we can maybe when we talk about this actually area, we talk about as morphology of the decomposition of words into morphemes. So this is a big step. Why? Because we can ask the following question: how is analysis of words into morphemes motivated? Maybe when is it desirable to have morphological analysis without dividing a word into morphemes, as we see here? So this is actually an important issue that we are going to deal more basically here. When we look into maybe a kind of a main area, what more basically, what is a word? This will be one of the major, I think, questions of this course. What is a word? How do we recognize one when we see it? Can the speech stream be decomposed into words? Or is it possible that there is a kind of stuff out of I mean, morphemes, that do not form parts of words, lexical items. So here it is a kind of defining of lexical items. Where another area, which is a very important in this regard, is the cross-linguistic variation in terms of a variation across languages, a kind of analytical, often analytic, syntactic, or synthetic distinction. So we have analytic, synthetic distinction, isolating, analytic, synthetic, polysynthetic distinction. So here we have different types of languages in terms of how much morphology there is. So, for example, when we look into such categorization like this, for example, we have Vietnamese 1.06 out of 4 when we measure the mean length of utterances. German, for example, 1.92. Old English 2.12, Swahili 2.55, Sanskrit 2.59, Greenlandic Eskimo is a 3.75. So the ratio, and Arabic, of course, which is about 2.7. So when we look into actually these ratios, we can tell how the this language how much morphology this language contains. If we look into Haspelmath's goals, I mean Haspelmath, I mean his in his book of understanding morphology that I'm going to rely upon in addition to introducing morphology by Laurie Bauer. So, according to Haspelmath's goals of linguistic theory, to provide a kind of elegant description, cognitively realistic description, system external explanation, restrictive architecture of for description. So here, when we look into these goals in terms of the theory, maybe this would be a kind of easy to access such forms like this. Also, we are going to deal with word forms, lexemes, lemmas in terms of paradigms, and so on and so forth. So, when we talk about word forms, lexemes, lemmas, as I said, a lexeme is a kind of inflectional family, i.e., paradigm of word forms like the boy, boys, jump, jumps, jumping, jumped, and so on and so forth. So, here, when we talk about a paradigm, here, which is a very important actually notion that I'm going to deal with, which is a set of related forms, a choice of which can be determined or accessed by syntax, a template of related forms for a given, for example, fixed stem. So the meaning of the stem is fixed, and the choice of the position in the paradigm specifies grammatical information, and in most cases, of course, a grammatical meaning as well. So generally speaking, in the sense that all positions are filled or available in the paradigm with semantic regularity. So generally, the items in a paradigm are all from or taken from inflected from the same let's say the same lexeme. Okay, so this is a kind of in terms of the structure of the paradigms. So when we talk about actually these things, we should bear in mind how the construction morphology can work in terms of how these things are let's say conceived. For example, when we talk about related words, not from the same paradigm, are related derivationally. So here we have a separate syntagmatic relationship, a family of derivationally related words, which is a lemma or word family. So we have compounds that have different lexemes in terms of their structure. So here we talk about two different let's say ideas. Also, when we talk about the lexemes here, we talk about the affixes, bases, or stems and roots, right? We talk about when the entries of the paradigm share contiguous amount of phonological material, we identify that as the stem of the paradigm, and the other material is the affix that identifies the part of the paradigm. uh, Derivational affixes defined in parallel fashion. When two lexemes are derivationally related, typically one is more morphologically complex, I mean inflected or they're changed, than the other, i.e., formed from the other by the addition of an affix. When this is not the case, convergent or something else. So a stem which is not related to morphologically simpler lexeme is called a root. Okay, so here we move to maybe to formal operations. So this is a very important area that we are going to deal with when we talk about topics of this course. So we talk about the formal operations that relate to word forms, right? And lexemes. So affixation, compounding, for example, templatic association, Afro as in Afro-Asiatic languages, base modifications like voicing of final fricatives in English to form verbs or plurals. Also, illustration, or it illustrates historical, morphological, or morphologization of phonological effects. Maybe we have palatalization, as in English strong verbs versus weak verbs, reduplication, subtraction, as in French unmarked masculine adjective stems, acronyms, clippings, alphabetisms. The base of a morphologically complex word is the element to which a morphological operation applies. So we talk about actually here different uh, operations that we deal with. So we have acronyms, we have alphabetims, and so on and so forth. And also we are going to talk about the notion morpheme versus the allomorph, right? So here it is very important to talk about this dichotomy. So as in Turkish, vowel harmony, how much of this is taken care of by the phonology and is therefore not to the business of morphology. So automatic phonology, automatic morphophonology, non-automatic morphophonology, morphological suppletion, suppletion in, as in buy bought, catch caught, teach taught, seek sought. So how many other forms are available as we see here, and we will see inshallah in the future. So crucial point here, allomorphs must have the same meaning and their choice must be predictable from the phono morphosyntactic information that we have a kind of in terms of motivation for their change. So when we talk about suppletions, as I said here, catch caught, the concept of predictability by these three elements: phonology, morphology, and syntactic. Also, when we talk about the productivity, it is a very important concept that we are going to talk about in this class. We have new words, neologisms, morphological processes that can create new words, which are called productive. So we have a productive morphological processes that can create new words, as in ness, eyes, miss, which are highly predictable, highly productive, sorry. Unproductive affixes like al in arrive, arrival. So speakers still recognize the relationship even if it is not productive. So here, when we talk about these forms, we talk about the mechanisms that can create new words, as we said, that are called productive, and the examples that we have at hand here. So we have, as we said, the morphological rules describe relationships between words in the lexicon. As here we have the lexicon and the morphological rules, and they may, I think, may or may not be predictive in addition. So only when a rule is predictive and is observed to be extended to new bases, can we be sure not only that the rule exists in the linguist description, but that is also cognitively real according to the, let's say, conceptualization of Martel Haspel-Math's view, which says that only complex words like simple words may be listed in the lexicon, even if their formation is unproductive. Uh, uh, I think here also we're going to talk about some characteristics or some features of productivity in terms of gradients, continuum of productivity. A rule is cognitively real only if it is predictive, if it extends to new bases, and it is accessible to further rules that can modify the shape of this word in the lexicon. So, according to Haspel math, here we are going to have a kind of continuum for the productivity patterns. And also, we are going to talk about the let's say the views of the lexicon. We have the morpheme lexicon, we have the excludes this lexicon, regular complex forms, the general principles listed. Let's say talk about listing effects is avoided, and also the use of features to mark exceptions, and we have the full exception or the full lexicon, which includes all possible and observed words, like it's criticized, of course, as a kind of uneconomical and inelegant, as shown by Haspel math observation. Also, we talk about the frequency, high frequency forms, right? How they are dealt with in terms of the let's say in terms of productivity, how they are likely to have irregular inflected forms than medium frequency. So this is going to be dealt with in terms of frequency, productivity, let's say default patterns. Of course, regularity versus irregularity of the forms, and how they can interact in the lexicon. Also, we are going to talk about the word pattern changes in morphology. I mean, the operations or the rules or the changes that are witnessed in the language due to some diachronic versus synchronic factors, like grammaticalization of forms, the tendency of a lexical form to be grammatical with certain consequences, like clipping, shortening, desemanticization, bleaching of the meaning, and so on and so forth. So we have different examples that we will have from English, from Arabic, Spanish, of course, French, and so on and so forth. Other patterns of change, like analogical change, reanalysis, all these phenomena are going to be dealt with in this class, and we are going also to talk about the relationship between the inflection and the derivation, the derivational as well as the inflectional relationships. Here, when we talk about the inflectional relationships, we talk about the paradigmatic relationships, right? We are going to talk about the derivational, that we are intra relationship with inter-paradigmatic relationships in terms of inflection versus derivation. Other points that we are going to deal with in this regard are called, here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, let's say, compounding, right? So here I'm going to talk about compounding, right? Okay, so when we talk about compounding, here we talk about a kind of complex, right? Complex lexeme consisting, right? Consisting uh, of uh, of two or more base words. So also we are going to talk about the different types of compounds in the language. Basically, in Arabic, sorry, in English, we are going to talk about the structure of the compounds, how they interact with phonology, and the compounding productivity, in terms of high productivity compounds, low productivity compounds, how compounding interacts with suprasegmental features like stress, and how we can look into the compound versus the phrase in terms of the location of stress. Also, we are going to talk about the realization of compounds in different languages, the semantics of compounds also, which is going to be, let's say, um, dealt with in this class. Also, we're going in terms of meaning or semantics of compounds. We are going to deal with the endocentric versus exocentric compounds in terms of the predictability of the meaning that we are having at hand. And also, we are going to talk about the, let's say, types of compound in terms of let's say the head of the compound itself. So we have coordinate compounds, coordinate-like compounds, oppositional compounds, and also we are going to have an idea about compounding in Arabic. So all these issues actually are going to be dealt with in this class, and I think we will have a very joyful class, and we are going to have a very interesting class in terms of the elements that we are going to deal with. A very important issue, dear students and colleagues, is that in this class, I'm going to focus upon problem sets and how we deal with the problem sets. We are going to have problem sets from different languages. We are going to have problem sets from Arabic, English, French, Spanish, Turkish, German, Russian, maybe. Uh, Swahili, Yaulmani, Cherokee languages, Native American languages, Semitic in general language, Semitic languages in general, because we want to build a kind of linguistic understanding for the notion morphology at different levels. So, we are also going to figure out how the patterns work together in order to tell us about the behavior of the languages, and this behavior of languages, how it tells us about its conformity with the lexicon, and how the lexicon is organized and architectured. By this, I think we will be able to predict and tell how the language works in terms of its morphology, and the interface that morphology plays with syntax, of course, phonology, semantics, and maybe other elements in different linguistic levels. For this purpose, I'm going to work hard in order to make things clear, and to make things, let's say, digestible. And I think we are going to rely upon different models of grammar or morphology, not only one model, but basically we are going to rely upon the conceptualization of Martin Haspelmath's construction grammar theory. As I said, we are going to have problem sets, and we are going to work on the problem sets. And I'm going to be very happy to receive any feedback from any of you, so that we can have a kind of useful classroom. Thank you for listening again, and have a good day.